They said I couldn't keep my dream car until the HOA cop decided to destroy it. What he didn't know? I'm not just fighting back, I'm taking them down. Watch how a $13,700 attack turned into full-blown justice. Visuals for video. Quick shots of the Audi S6 in pristine condition. Clips of the smashed windshield in red paint. Dramatic close-ups of Derek in his vest and Karen stepping in. Courtroom snippets, or recreated dramatization. Final shot. Restored Audi driving away triumphantly. They say you shouldn't get too attached to material things. But when you work your entire youth, grind through double shifts, and pour years of sweat into finally affording the one thing you've dreamed of since your 20s, you can't help but feel attached. For me, that dream was my 2025 Audi S6. Midnight black, twin-turbo V6, ceramic brakes, and matte trim that caught the sunlight like it was dipped in obsidian. It wasn't just a car. It was proof that everything I had sacrificed had been worth it. The day I drove it home, my neighbor Jake sprinted out of his house with his phone already recording, circling the car like it had just rolled off the podium at Le Mans. "Bro, you finally did it," he said, his grin stretching ear to ear. "This thing is art on wheels." But not everyone felt that way. From across the cul-de-sac, Derek Miles stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, staring at my new car like it was a personal insult. Derek wasn't the HOA president, not even a board member. He was a self-declared enforcer, parading around with a cheap tactical vest that had HOA cops stitched across the front, as if a few patches turned him into law enforcement. He strutted up and down the block with a clipboard and a radio clipped to his shoulder, as though the streets were his to patrol. I waved, just trying to be neighborly. Derek didn't wave back. His eyes never left the Audi. By the next morning, a bright slip of paper flapped beneath my windshield wiper. A violation notice. According to Derek, my car was inconsistent with neighborhood aesthetic. The HOA bylaws were clear. There was no restriction against performance sedans, let alone something as tasteful as the S6. This was just Derek playing fake cop again. I emailed the board, laid it out politely but firmly. My car was compliant, legal, and not prohibited under CCRs. But Derek didn't stop. He doubled down. I started noticing him circling the house in his SUV, snapping photos, scribbling notes in his clipboard. He even stopped Jake one evening and told him, "That car lowers property values. It doesn't belong here." When the next HOA meeting rolled around, Derek brought it up in front of the entire room. To my shock, Karen Hargrove, the HOA vice president, sided with him. Karen was sharp-suited, always looking like she had just walked out of a courtroom. She had that smug confidence of someone who believed her opinion was law. "We have to preserve the image of this community," she said firmly, scanning the room as if my Audi had spat on her shoes. "If residents think loud, flashy cars are allowed, we're going to see more of them." I stood, calm but resolute. "There's nothing in the bylaws against my car. You can't invent rules because you don't like my choices." Karen pressed her lips together. Derek smirked. And as I left the meeting, Derek brushed past me with a mutter that made my stomach tighten. "If you don't handle it, I will." I should have taken it as the threat it was, because the very next morning, I stepped out onto my driveway and felt my chest cave in. The windshield of my Audi was shattered, spiderweb cracks spreading like veins of ice. Across the glass, dripping in red spray paint, were two words that made my blood run cold. "I warned you." Neighbors began to gather, whispering, staring. Jake jogged over, phone out, muttering, "Dude, that's not random, that's targeted." I didn't need him to say who he thought was behind it. I already knew. It was Derek. The sight of my Audi broken and defaced burned into me like a brand. The dream I had sacrificed so much for lay vandalized in my driveway, dripping with Derek's arrogance. My first move was to pull up my Ring camera footage. Sure enough, under the cover of night, someone had crept up with a hoodie, gloves, and a can of red spray paint. They worked quick, methodical. Before walking away, they paused just long enough to flip off the camera. The footage was grainy, but the posture, the broad shoulders, the cocky tilt of the head, it screamed Derek Miles. I called the sheriff's office immediately, filing a report while anger churned in my gut. But before I even finished, my inbox pinged with a new email. My stomach knotted tighter when I opened it. An official HOA violation notice, signed by none other than Vice President Karen Hargrove. Violation: excessive noise. Vehicle inconsistent with community image. Vehicle must be removed within 14 days to avoid fines. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Derek vandalizes my car, spray paints a threat across it, and instead of condemning the crime, Karen doubles down with a formal violation notice. It was a setup. Derek played the muscle, and Karen gave it the stamp of authority. That night, I found Derek leaning against his SUV, his fake HOA cop vest strapped on like he thought he was in a TV drama. Clipboard in hand, smug grin plastered on his face. I stormed across the street, phone in hand with the photo of my Audi's windshield. "You think this is funny?" I demanded. Derek's grin widened. "Looks like somebody doesn't like your car. Maybe you should listen to the neighborhood." "You mean listen to you?" I snapped back. He didn't deny it, just tapped his clipboard with a smirk and muttered, "Rules are rules." I stepped closer, close enough to see the flicker in his eyes. "You don't make the rules, Derek, and breaking the law doesn't make you an authority. It makes you a criminal. Under California Penal Code 594, vandalism over $400 is a felony. That's where you're standing." For the first time, the smugness faltered. Just a flicker. But before I could press further, Karen's heels clicked against the pavement. She strode up, standing at Derek's side like his defense attorney. "Enough," she snapped. "We're trying to protect property values. If you cared about this community, you'd do what's best and get rid of that eyesore. This isn't personal. It's about standards." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Standards? Spray painting my windshield and slashing my car? That's your standard?" Karen's face was a mask of cold indifference. "You have 14 days. I looked between the two of them. Derek puffed up in his dollar store vest, Karen with her arms crossed like she was presiding over a courtroom. They thought they had me cornered, but in that moment my anger solidified into something sharper. This wasn't going to end with a repair bill. No. This was going to end in a courtroom. Across the street, Jake was still recording on his phone. I raised my voice so the entire block could hear. "Save that video, because when this goes to court, it won't be my car on trial. It'll be them." For just a heartbeat, the color drained from Derek's face. Karen tugged nervously at her sleeve. I walked back inside, chest tight but steady. They thought this was about a car. They had no idea it was about to turn into a war. The morning after my confrontation, I drove my battered Audi S6 downtown to a trusted specialty shop. Watching the mechanics shake their heads as they circled the car felt like being stabbed all over again. The numbers piled up fast. The windshield, beyond repair, $1,200 to replace. The spray paint, because of the matte factory Nardo gray finish, it wasn't just a buff job. A full respray was required, $7,800. Both side mirrors, cracked, $1,150 each. The Pirelli P0 tires, every single one of them had slow punctures. 4 replacements at $650 each came to $20,600. The grand total, $13,700. That was no misdemeanor. That was felony-level vandalism. I met with my attorney, Sam, later that afternoon. Sam was a shark in a suit, sharp-eyed and relentless. He scanned the invoice, then looked up at me with a grin. "California Penal Code 594. Anything over 400 is felony vandalism. And this? This isn't just a case. This is a slam dunk. We'll tack on civil damages too. By the time we're done, Derek won't be smirking anymore." Jake came over later with his phone in hand. He had the footage of my heated exchange with Derek and Karen. The smirk, Derek tapping his clipboard, Karen stepping in to defend him, issuing her veiled threats. Sam leaned back in his chair, satisfied. This is gold. Not only does it show Derek practically admitting his involvement, it shows Karen backing him up. If she knew what he was doing and endorsed it, that's aiding and abetting. Word spread quickly around the neighborhood. People whispered, and for the first time I noticed neighbors giving Derek wary looks instead of friendly nods. Some even crossed the street to avoid him. He wasn't the enforcer anymore. He was a suspect. When the next HOA meeting rolled around, the room was standing room only. Neighbors had heard rumors, but they didn't expect what I brought with me. I rolled in with Sam and a small projector under my arm. As the meeting began, I plugged it in, dimmed the lights, and played the footage. First, my Audi, vandalized, windshield spiderwebbed with red spray paint. Then, The Ring camera footage of Derek in the shadows, hood slipping just enough to expose his jawline. Finally, the video Jake captured, me confronting Derek, his smug grin, Karen stepping in, coldly telling me to get rid of that eyesore. The room went silent. A neighbor muttered, "That's a crime." Another whispered, "Didn't he spray my kid's bike last year?" Murmurs spread like wildfire, people glancing at Derek with wide eyes. Karen shot to her feet. "This is harassment. You can't parade edited videos in here and accuse board members." Sam rose smoothly, voice steady but sharp. "This isn't harassment, this is evidence. Under California Civil Code 3333, my client has the right to recover damages. And under Penal Code 594, your friend Derek is facing felony vandalism. If you had knowledge of or endorsed this behavior, you are liable for aiding and abetting." Karen's face went white. Derek shifted uncomfortably, pushing his vest under his chair like it might disappear. Then the HOA president, who had sat in silence the whole time, finally spoke. "If this is true, the board cannot protect you. We will cooperate fully with law enforcement." The room erupted into whispers. Derek's kingdom of intimidation had just crumbled, and he knew it. Subpoenas for HOA emails revealed a damning trail. Karen had not only condoned Derek's actions but actively encouraged him. Every threatening message, every defensive note, it was all there in black and white. By the time the case went to trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Derek was convicted of felony vandalism, sentenced to probation, community service, and ordered to pay restitution. Karen, stripped of her HOA role, faced hefty civil fines and was forced to resign. The judge, seeing the premeditated harassment, ruled that both Derek and Karen were jointly responsible for reimbursing the full $13,700 for damages and my legal fees. Justice, finally, was served. Meanwhile, the neighborhood breathed easier. The HOA, tainted by corruption and fear, dissolved under mounting pressure from residents. Derek's tactical vest, once a symbol of his self-appointed authority, now sat in an evidence locker, a hollow emblem of his downfall. Karen quietly sold her house, leaving the street free from their harassment. The cul-de-sac felt lighter, calmer, like a weight had been lifted. And me? I slid back into my fully restored Audi S6, the engine purring low and smooth, a perfect counterpoint to the chaos that had erupted around it. As I drove past neighbors, some waved tentatively, others gave approving nods. The black twin-turbo gleamed under the sunlight, unscathed by fear or intimidation. I felt the sweet satisfaction of vindication, not loud, not flashy, but undeniable. Revenge had been tempting, yes, but I realized justice was far more satisfying. Derek and Karen had tried to bully, harass, and destroy. I had faced the damage, the costs, and the threats, yet remained calm, calculated, and unwavering. Every document, every recording, every conversation was meticulously preserved. It wasn't just about the Audi, it was about holding people accountable when they overstepped their bounds. Driving home that evening, I let the engine roar a little, a subtle, controlled reminder of victory. No words needed. The street, the neighborhood, even the wind seemed to acknowledge it. Sometimes power isn't about shouting or intimidation. It's about preparation, resilience, and timing. And in that lesson, Derek and Karen were left with nothing but a cautionary tale, while I reclaimed not just my car, but the peace, respect, and dignity that they had tried to strip away. Justice, quiet and undeniable, had arrived, and it drove away in a midnight black Audi S6.